There are moments in life when a single story can shift the way you see the world. Moments where the right lesson arrives exactly when you need it. That's what today's life lesson story is all about. And to deliver that lesson, we're stepping into the boots of a man who has become a symbol of grit, wisdom, and hard earned experience, Clint Eastwood. For decades, Clint has captivated audiences with characters who face the world head on, quietly, firmly, and with a sense of responsibility that never wavers. Whether he's riding into a dusty frontier town or standing alone against impossible odds, Clint's characters always remind us of something important. No matter how old you are, no matter where you come from, life will always test you. And the way you respond is what defines your legacy. But this isn't a Western. This isn't an action film. This is a story grounded in real life, built around a powerful message that anyone, young or old, can learn from. It's about a mistake that almost cost Clint everything. It's about humility, strength, forgiveness, and the courage it takes to confront your past. So sit back, relax, and let this story take you into the heart of a lesson you will never forget. Welcome to Clint Eastwood's Hardest Lesson, a story about pride, loss, and redemption. Clint Eastwood had lived long enough to understand the weight of silence, not the peaceful kind that follows a sunset, nor the gentle calm of a quiet morning. This was the heavy silence, the one that settles after years of unspoken words and unresolved mistakes. At 89, Clint had everything a man could want: a long legacy, a respected name, a career that stretched across generations. But there was one thing he didn't have: peace with his son, Michael. They hadn't spoken in over 7 years. The rift had started small, as so many do. A disagreement about a movie project, a difference in vision, a clash of personalities. Clint had always been strong-willed, and Michael inherited that same steel. But while iron sharpens iron, sometimes fire burns fire. And in their case, the flame had ignited a conflict that neither man knew how to put out. Still, life has a way of forcing clarity onto those who refuse to seek it. One cold autumn morning, Clint received a message that shook the foundation of his world. Michael had been hospitalized. The words came from a family friend, someone who had been trying to bridge the gap between them for years. He collapsed on set, she said quietly. The doctors say it's stress, years of pushing himself too hard. Clint felt the kind of fear he hadn't felt in decades. Not on a film set, not in front of cameras, not even during the darkest chapters of his youth. This was personal. This was a wake-up call delivered with the brutality of truth. For the first time in years, Clint wished he could turn back time. He arrived at the hospital without the usual confidence that people associated with his name. He wasn't Clint Eastwood, the actor. He wasn't the director. He wasn't the legend. He was just an old man who had let too much time go by. When he stepped into Michael's room, he found his son sleeping, pale, exhausted, hooked to monitors that beeped with unsettling irregularity. Clint stood there silently, staring at the man who looked so much like him. Same jawline, same determined eyes, same quiet intensity. Only now there was fragility where strength used to sit. A nurse stepped into the room and whispered, "He'll wake up soon. You can sit with him if you'd like." Clint nodded and took a seat beside the bed. He felt the weight of 7 lost years pressing on his chest. He reached for Michael's hand, but stopped halfway. He didn't know if he had the right. When Michael finally opened his eyes, he blinked slowly. It took him a few seconds to register the figure sitting beside him. The moment recognition hit, his jaw tightened. "You came," Michael said, his voice weak but sharp. Clint nodded. "Yeah, I did." "Why?" The question wasn't cruel. It was honest, the kind of honesty Clint had avoided for too long. "Because I should have come a long time ago," Clint said. "Because I was wrong, and because I'm still your father." Michael looked away, his expression torn between resentment and longing. "You know," he whispered, "I used to check every headline, every interview, just to see if maybe you mentioned me, just to see if maybe you still cared." Clint closed his eyes, hit by the truth like a bullet. "I cared more than you know. I just didn't know how to fix things." Michael let out a weak laugh. "You? Clint Eastwood? The man who stares down villains in storms and danger? You didn't know how to fix things?" Clint nodded with a humility he rarely showed. "I can stare down danger, but I can't stare down my own pride. Not without a fight." For the first time in years, Michael's expression softened. Over the next few days, Clint stayed by his son's side. He fetched water, talked to the nurses, even cracked a few jokes. It wasn't much, but it was something. And slowly the ice between them began to thaw. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon and the hospital lights buzzed softly overhead, Michael spoke again. You know what made me collapse? Clint shook his head. I was trying to prove something, trying to prove I didn't need your approval, trying to prove I could be bigger than your shadow. Clint sighed. You were never in my shadow. You were always walking beside me. I just didn't say it enough. Michael swallowed. You didn't say it at all. Silence settled again, but this time it was different. It wasn't the silence of distance. It was the silence of two men finally confronting the truth. Clint leaned back and stared at the ceiling. I spent my whole life teaching people how to be strong on screen, but I never taught my own son how to be strong with me. Michael looked at him. So what now? Clint smiled faintly. Now we start over. And so they did. The nurses noticed it first, the change in energy whenever Clint walked into the room. The heaviness lifted, the air lightened. Father and son laughed, reminisced, and even argued a little, healthy arguments, the kind that come from rebuilding something broken. When Michael was finally discharged, Clint insisted on driving him home. As they rolled down the quiet California streets, Michael turned to him. Dad, why now? Why did you come now and not years ago? Clint kept his eyes on the road because sometimes life whispers, and if you don't listen, it starts shouting, and if you still don't listen, it hits you in a way you can't ignore. Michael nodded slowly. So this was a shout? Clint shook his head. This was a warning shot, and I wasn't going to wait for the real bullet. They arrived at Michael's house, a simple place, warm and welcoming. Before getting out of the car, Clint placed a hand on his son's shoulder. You're not alone anymore, he said. Not for one more day of your life. Michael's eyes welled with emotion. He nodded. Neither are you. And for the first time in years, Clint felt something he hadn't felt in a long time. Peace. The first week after Michael's release felt like the beginning of a quiet healing. Slow, steady, cautious, but real. Clint found himself visiting every morning, sometimes with coffee, sometimes with groceries, sometimes with nothing but the intention to simply sit and talk. And each day, Michael grew stronger. But while their relationship had begun to mend, life wasn't done teaching Clint one final lesson, one he didn't see coming. It happened on a Thursday morning. Clint pulled up to Michael's house, expecting to find him resting. Instead, he found the driveway crowded with unfamiliar cars. People he didn't recognize lingered near the front porch, speaking in low, tense voices. Clint stepped out, his instincts sharpening. A woman recognized him and hurried over. Mr. Eastwood, thank God you're here. Michael's inside. Something's happened. Clint felt the air leave his chest. What is it? It's the production company, she said. The one Michael was working with before he collapsed. They've come to pressure him to return to work. They're demanding he finish the project or face the financial penalties. Clint's eyes darkened. Michael was barely recovering. He wasn't ready for any of this. Without another word, Clint pushed through the crowd and entered the house. Inside, Michael sat slumped on the couch, surrounded by two producers and a legal consultant. He looked exhausted, overwhelmed, and completely unprepared for the confrontation. You signed a contract, one producer was saying, his tone sharp. Your health issues are unfortunate, but the studio can't delay production forever. Michael rubbed his temples. I just got out of the hospital. I need time. The consultant slid a stack of papers toward him. Time is money. You don't have either. And then the room shifted. Clint stepped into view. Every head turned. Every voice stopped. Every inch of tension froze in place. The producers swallowed hard. Everyone knew Clint Eastwood, but no one expected him here. Not like this, not this angry, not this protective. Clint moved slowly to the center of the room, his eyes cold, measured, unblinking. My son, Clint said calmly, isn't working for anyone until he's fully recovered. If you have a problem with that, you have a problem with me. The producers exchanged nervous glances. Mr. Eastwood, one stammered, with all due respect, with all the respect you think you have, Clint interrupted. It's not enough. The silence was thick enough to cut. Clint placed a hand on Michael's shoulder. You see that? He said softly to the producers. You see the man sitting in front of you? He's not a machine. He's not a paycheck. He's my son. And for years, I let my career speak louder than my responsibilities as a father. Not anymore. The room stayed frozen. Clint continued. If you want to take legal action, go ahead. But understand this. No court, no contract, no studio is going to force my son into the ground. The consultant cleared his throat. The penalties are outlined clearly. Oh, I read the contract, Clint said. And I know enough about the law and about the way men like you operate to understand when someone is being bullied. The word bullied hung in the air. Clint took a step closer. You may think he's alone. You may think he's vulnerable, but he's not alone anymore. Not while I'm breathing. There was something ancient in Clint's voice, an authority earned from decades of surviving storms. The producers hesitated, then finally said, "We'll discuss alternate arrangements, a delay, maybe a rewrite." "That's a smart choice," Clint said. Within minutes, they left, quietly, quickly, and without argument. When the door closed behind them, Michael exhaled shakily. "Dad, I didn't expect you to step in like that." Clint sat beside him. "You shouldn't have had to face that alone." The confrontation brought Clint and Michael closer than ever, but it also stirred something inside Clint, a realization. For decades he had lived for work, film sets, long hours, constant pressure. He had pushed himself the same way Michael was pushing himself now, and years of that lifestyle had carved deep lines into his life. Broken relationships, lost connections, time he could never get back. He didn't want that for Michael. And so, the next day, Clint made a decision. He drove to Michael's house again, but this time with a different intention. Michael answered the door with a tired smile. "Morning, Dad." "Morning," Clint said. "Take a walk with me." They walked through a quiet park, the kind filled with old oak trees and scattered benches. The sun warmed the earth. The breeze carried the smell of leaves. After a moment of silence, Clint began. "I need to tell you a story." Michael smiled gently. "You? A story? I'm listening." Clint chuckled softly. "When I was younger, your age, maybe a little older, I was obsessed with success. I thought every film, every project, every opportunity was a once-in-a-lifetime chance, so I didn't say no, not once, and the years flew by." Michael nodded, listening carefully. "I miss birthdays," Clint said slowly. "I miss family dinners, I missed life, and I told myself it was worth it, that the legacy would make up for it." He paused. "But when I walked into that hospital and saw you lying there, I realized how wrong I was." Michael swallowed. "Dad." Clint faced him fully. "You don't owe the world your whole life. You owe yourself peace, balance, health, and you owe the people you love your time." Michael's eyes softened with emotion. I thought you want me to work harder, to follow your path." "No," Clint said. "I want you to build your own path. A better one than mine." They sat on a bench, staring out at a lake where ducks floated quietly across the water. Clint spoke again. "Son, life will give you chances. It'll give you dreams. But it'll also give you warnings. Don't wait for the warnings to become consequences." Michael exhaled slowly. "I think I've been trying to live up to your legend." Clint shook his head. "Don't live up to my legend. Live up to your truth." A deep silence followed, a good silence. Finally, Michael said, "So what now?" Clint smiled. "Now? Now we heal. Together." Over the next several weeks, their relationship transformed in ways neither of them had expected. They shared meals, told stories from their pasts, even worked on a small personal film project, not for studios, not for fame, just to reconnect. One afternoon, while filming a simple scene at a ranch, Michael lowered the camera and looked at his father. "You know, I used to think we were enemies," he said. "Two stubborn people who couldn't understand each other." Clint smiled warmly. "We weren't enemies. We were just men who forgot how to talk." Michael nodded. "But we're talking now." "And we'll keep talking," Clint said, "as long as we have time." Months passed. Michael regained his strength, restored his confidence, and regained control of his future. The production company backed off completely. New opportunities came, but this time Michael was wiser. He said no when he needed to, yes when he truly wanted to. Clint watched him with pride. One evening, as they sat together watching the sunset, Michael turned to him. "What was the hardest thing you learned through all this?" he asked. Clint looked at the horizon, eyes steady. That the toughest battles in life aren't fought with fists or guns or anger. They're fought with forgiveness, humility, and the courage to show up when it matters. Michael nodded thoughtfully. "And the most important thing," Clint added gently. "What's that?" "Family," Clint whispered. "Everything else fades. Fame fades. Work fades. But the people who love you, they're the only legacy that truly lasts." Michael's eyes glistened. He nodded slowly. "You're right, Dad." Clint smiled. "I finally am." And in that moment, the long road of their past didn't matter anymore. What mattered was the present, the bond rebuilt, the lesson learned, the future restored. A father and son walking into the next chapter of life as if no time had been lost at all. If you enjoyed this story and want more life lesson stories like this, make sure you like the video, leave a comment, and most importantly, hit that subscribe button so you never miss another story.